So I think we're about ready to get started. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. If you don't know me, my name's Hazel. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager at Northamptonshire Community Foundation. I'll be chairing the webinar today. As an audience member on this webinar, you'll be muted and with your camera switched off for the duration of the event. On your toolbar, you should have a chat feature and a Q&A box as well. So if you have any comments, you can use the chat feature. If you have any questions to ask any one of our panelists, please use the Q&A box. If you see a question in there that you like the sound of, that you think, oh, I was going to ask that, you can upvote that question so we know which ones we should prioritise when we come to our Q&A session in the middle and at the end of our presentation today. Any questions that we don't get to, we will summarise in an email that will go out after the session for you, so you won't miss any information. If anyone doesn't know, Northamptonshire Community Foundation is a place-based grant-making charity. We cover all four corners of Northamptonshire, and one important aspect of our work is the Revitalising Trusts programme. My colleague Dean Jones, who is our Head of Giving and Development, is here on behalf of the Foundation to speak to you a bit more about that. And we've also been joined by Debbie Fleming and Tracy Preston from the Charity Commission, who will talk about the Revitalising Trust programme from their perspective. We're really, really pleased to bring you this opportunity to learn more about the programme. It's a really important part of our work as a grant-making charity. And thank you again for being here. I will hand over to Debbie and Tracy from the Charity Commission.
Hello everybody, and welcome to this short presentation about the Charity Commission's Revitalising Trusts programme. While I'm doing the presentation, I'll actually turn my camera off and then I'll put it on at the end if that's okay with everyone, but please feel free to use that chat function or to raise your hand, and we have got time for questions at the end. Okay. Right, so this presentation is being made by me, Tracy Preston. I manage the Revitalising Trusts and Register Oversight teams at the Commission, and also Debbie Fleming, who runs the programme and manages the Revitalising Trusts team on a day-to-day basis. Next slide, please. And we're basically going to be looking at the contents of the presentation is what actually is the Revitalising Trusts programme. How do we identify those charities that we're going to contact? How can we help them when we do contact them? Our successes so far, and also we're going to have a look at some case studies just to see how some charities have actually benefited from the programme. Next slide, please. So what is the Revitalising Trusts programme? Well, as you can see from the slide, it was established in 2018 for England only at that point, working with UKCF and funded by the Department for Culture, Media and Sport. It was to support trustees of inactive or ineffective trusts to revitalise their charities and put their trust assets back to work for the public benefit in local communities. We could only progress in England at that point because the funding was restricted to looking at charities in England. We progressed to working in Wales, as you can see from the slide, in 2021, when we received some funding from the Welsh Government. The main aims of the programme was to assist ineffective charities that may have assets and they were finding it difficult to spend those assets, to identify any dormant funds held by inactive charities and to redistribute these, to support trustees by providing some simple solutions to any problems that they have, and maintain the public register to inform better public choice. So we'll go more into what ineffective and inactive is in later slides. Many trustees are unaware that there are thousands of inactive funds that could be pooled and used more effectively to provide local charities with much needed support. The Commission reaches out to those trustees whose assets are dormant or whose charitable work has paused in order to redistribute the funds This can be through Community Foundation UK or Wales, or indeed other charities, to offer support to the charity to get them back, or we can offer support to the charity to get them back on track. The programme also has the added bonus of actually cleansing our Commission register of charities, so we can remove charities that are no longer operating, to provide an additional resource to support local social action that supports the most vulnerable people who are living in England and Wales, and to hopefully build a stronger voluntary and community sector at grassroots level. Right, next slide, please. So why do we do this? Well, to ensure charities can thrive and inspire trust so that people can improve lives and strengthen society. So we help trustees to restart their charity, to change the charity's, maybe change the charity's purposes, to perhaps close the charity, and or perhaps transfer charity assets. So when we say restart the charity, many charities, for example, paused during COVID. So we've actually helped a lot of charities get back on track after that pandemic period. Changing a charity's purposes. Sometimes the purposes that a charity have are not relevant to today's society, so they may need changing. Sometimes it's best just to close the charity so that those funds are released. So that's why we sometimes help to close the charity. And in respect of transferring assets, we do this so that funds for the charity can be used, usually by a charity with similar objects. Next slide, please. So how do we identify those charities? Next slide, please. Right, so we do this by we conduct regular reviews of the public register to contact charities that are either inactive or ineffective using the following criteria. So they've not submitted an annual return to the Commission for a period of 5 years, or they've reported nil income and nil expenditure during that 5-year period. Or the other criteria is that the expenditure is less than 30% of overall income over a 5-year period. So in respect of them not submitting the annual return for that 5-year period, and this includes the nil income and nil expenditure charities, this could signify that the charity is closed perhaps, or the charity or the trustees have changed and the records have not been properly updated. In respect of the expenditure being less than 30% of the overall income, low expenditure income could indicate that the charity is struggling to spend the money, so therefore perhaps it needs to change its purposes, or it may need to change those objects, and we can help with that if needed. Next slide, please. So what happens when charities become inactive or ineffective? So charities that are deemed inactive or ineffective may find it difficult to get new trustees, or spend their income, identify beneficiaries, or find time to run the charity. So in respect of that, so the original purposes for the charity may be outdated. So we may help the charity to get new trustees if needed. In respect of spending the income, so the original purposes may be outdated. They may have ceased to exist. They may have been fulfilled, for example. For example, we had a charity where the objects of the charity were to buy petticoats for the women in the village. And obviously in today's society, that's not really something that's needed. The funds may be too small to make a significant impact. The trustees may need support as to what they need to do. Trustees may have to do perhaps more fundraising, or possibly even close the charity and give the money to another charity so that it has a better impact. Occasionally, trustees may just be inexperienced. and they may find it hard to stand down or find someone to replace them. Some trustees are very passionate about their charities and they just do not want to give up, but sometimes it's better just to close that charity so that those funds are used for the best, for the purposes of helping a community. So we identify charities that are ineffective or inactive and work with those charities to amend the objects, allowing them to revitalise, putting assets back to work for the public benefit in local communities. If that's not possible, we'll work to transfer funds to a charity with similar objects and achieve an orderly wind-up. Right, next slide, please. So what are the benefits? So, as you can see here, the benefits are fulfilling the charity's purposes. Trustees have a choice to work with UKCF or Community Foundation Wales to revitalise or transfer assets to local community foundations or other local charities with similar objects. We use our commission powers to support trustees, and we help to maintain, hopefully, a thriving local charity sector, releasing dormant assets that may not have been used to their full potential. So in respect of fulfilling charity purposes, we enable trustees to meet that public benefit, which is very important because all charities obviously must do that. We help to revitalise or transfer those funds and release those dormant funds. And in respect of using the Commission's powers, we can appoint an individual as trustee if there are no trustees remaining. And we can also use a power to direct a bank to transfer funds to a suitable charity if trustees are unable to access the funds that the charity has. For example, the bank account's been frozen or it's in a dormancy account at the bank. Right, next slide, please. And this slide here just shows our successes so far. So the tables show the number of charities where funds have been revitalised and the money spent, the money that's been released in each year. The programme has been very successful and it's raised over £133 million of funds. Resulted in over £133 million of funds being revitalised and used in the communities where they are needed. Okay, so I'll now pass you on to Debbie and she'll go over some case studies. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. So yeah, I'm just going to go through a few case studies to show the types of charities we come across during the programme and how we've helped them to either revitalise or close. Next slide, please. So the first case study was one in Wales that we dealt with last year. It had been identified as being inactive because from the annual returns, there was no expenditure recorded for the last 5 years. We made contact with the registered correspondent for the charity, who then informed us that the charity had only had one trustee who unfortunately had died before the COVID pandemic, and he confirmed that there were no other people involved. He was literally submitting the annual returns each year and receiving the bank statements, and he didn't know what else to do with the charity. So he was very, very grateful when we made contact with him. We found out from the bank statements that they had unused funds of just under £31,000, and we worked with the charity contact to identify a suitable charity for these funds. We were able to use our powers that Tracy referred to before under the Charities Act that directed the bank to transfer these funds to another charity within the area. It was very much a community-based charity, and they confirmed that the funds that we transferred to them would enable them to continue projects for a further 12 months. So it was a very successful story for all parties involved. Next slide, please. This case study is one from England. We identified that the charity had £746,000, so not a small charity, which are the ones that we do normally come across. We found out that they'd only been spending funds on bank charges each year, so they weren't doing anything to fulfil the charity's purposes. Eventually, we were able to set up a meeting with the trustees to discuss the options available to them. And we established that they were also trustees for another charity in England that did similar work, but had wider objects. And that charity was actually quite effective. So they'd been focusing on that one and had just left the one with the £746,000. They decided that the best option was to transfer the money to the effective charity so that they could be used for their purpose. But because they had trustees in common, we again had to use our powers to make what's called a Section 105 order, which essentially manages the conflict of interest and authorises the transfer of assets to the other charity. Obviously, the ineffective charity was for the relief of poverty. So one of the conditions of the transfer was that the funds had to be ring-fenced for their intended purpose, so they couldn't be used for anything else within that charity. And as a result of the order, the funds were transferred and we were able to remove the charity in December 2023. Next slide, please. So I've just got two more smaller examples. The first one is another one in Wales. It hadn't spent anything since 2007. So when we made contact with the trustees, we outlined all the options available to them. Obviously, 2007 was a very long time not to have spent anything. So their options were to revitalise or think about closing the charity and transfer the funds to another similar charity. After considering the options, they decided they wanted to stay open. So they reintroduced their grant scheme for students, offering bursaries to support them attending the school. And as a result of our contact, they were able to spend £50,000 in 2023. And the last one is another one in England. We identified that the charity only had one trustee remaining and he wanted to close the charity, but he was unable to access the funds held at CCLA. As with most banks and financial institutions, they normally need two signatories to release the funds. We've got quite a good working relationship with CCLA since the start of this programme. So we worked with them to get the funds transferred to a charity that the trustee had identified. And you can see from the slide there, he was very grateful for our assistance and he actually had more money than he originally thought. So he was very pleased that the funds were transferred and the money could be put to good use. Next slide, please. So obviously what's next for the Revitalising Trust programme? The funding with Welsh Government has ended. So our focus is now back on England charities. Unfortunately, I think we're always going to have charities that are inactive or ineffective for whatever reason. So we're currently looking at those charities that we contacted before COVID to see why they haven't done what they said they were going to do. And then we will look to start proactively contacting new charities that have been identified. Obviously, this means we'll be working again with the local community foundations and UK community foundations to help release more dormant funds. But it doesn't mean that work will stop in Wales. We are the Charity Commission for England and Wales. So we will continue to work with any charities in Wales that make contact with us that need our help. Next slide. So I think if there's any questions, I think we might have time to answer them now.
Thank you so much, Tracy and Debbie. That was so interesting. And I think it's really important to kind of demystify this process. It can seem like such a big, scary one. We don't have any questions in the Q&A box just at the moment, but that's all right. People are obviously still processing what you've said. So I'll ask a quick question if that's okay. Obviously, you've gone through the process in terms of the way that you would work with ineffective or inactive trusts and charities. If there are any trustees listening, or if anyone kind of listens to the recording of this webinar and thinks maybe their trust might benefit from the Revitalising Trusts programme in some way, what would their first step be there?
Debbie, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I can answer that. I think if trustees are finding that they're in a situation that they might need to think about revitalising or closing, I would suggest that they make contact with us first. Or a lot of the local community foundations are very aware of the work that we are doing. So that's another option. They can make contact with them to see if there's anything the community foundation can do. We do have some information on our website as well that gives more information about the programme, and it does have all our email addresses. But I think definitely if they found that they are in a situation where they're not spending, or they could potentially get into that situation, they do need to do something about it. Don't just sit and hope it's going to resolve itself. Make contact with us.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, Debbie and Tracy, again. If anyone does have any questions, if you think of any in the next few moments, please do pop them in the Q&A box. Debbie and Tracy are here until the end of the webinar, and we'll have another opportunity for questions then. For now, I will pass over to Dean Jones, who is the Head of Giving and Development at Northamptonshire Community Foundation.
Thank you very much, Hazel. Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us today. As Hazel mentioned, I'm Dean. I work as Head of Giving and Development at Northamptonshire Community Foundation, or NCF, as some of you will be more familiar with us as calling us. It's obviously great to be here alongside colleagues from the Charity Commission to talk about something that we think is really important, which is bringing those dormant charitable trusts back to life, and obviously doing it in a way that benefits local communities. I think just to go back a little bit and give you a bit of background, NCF, Northamptonshire Community Foundation, is the main local grant giving charity for Northamptonshire. And to give you some context, we've been supporting communities across the county for years, helping to tackle local challenges and backing the brilliant work of local charities and groups that we support. And we're really proud to be part of the National Revitalising Trust programme, working with the Charity Commission and our parent partner, if you like, UK Community Foundation, or UKCF. And really, it's all about making sure unused charitable funds aren't sitting idle, but are being used to do some real good right here where they're needed in the county, and indeed across the UK. So in terms of our impact so far, since our work began 24 years ago, we've given out over £24 million in grants across Northamptonshire, and that's all thanks to generous individuals, families, businesses, and charitable trusts that want to make a difference in their local area, from supporting food banks and youth work to improving the well-being of older people. And our focus is always on getting money to where it will have the greatest impact. And just briefly about the Community Foundation network. Generally, we're part of a wider UK network of 47 community foundations. We all share the same aim to support place-based giving rooted in real knowledge of local need. Nationally, community foundations are the fourth biggest funder in the country, so it gives you a sense of the scale of the work that we do. And we're part of an even bigger network across Europe. I think there are over 850 foundations in over 22 countries. So while our work is local, we're also backed by a lot of shared knowledge, experience, and support, and that's something that really strengthens what we can offer. So moving on now to the Revitalising Trust bit, which is why we're all here. Why trust transfer to an organisation like Northamptonshire Community Foundation? For many small charitable trusts, keeping going can become difficult, as has been explained by our colleagues from the Charity Commission. Trustees might struggle to find beneficiaries or no longer have the time to keep up with governance and reporting. Some funds just stop being active because the original purpose no longer fits today's needs. But that money that exists can still do real good in our community. And obviously that's where a partner like a community foundation, and in this scenario, Northamptonshire Community Foundation, that's where we can come in. So on to the next slide, which talks about how Northamptonshire Community Foundation in particular can help. So we help by taking on the legal and administrative responsibilities. We work closely with trustees to make sure we honour the original intent of the trust, but we also bring it up to date and make it relevant again, using our insight and understanding of the local community to do that. And in any scenario where we're taking on a trust, trustees can stay involved if they'd like to, or they can step back altogether. Either way, they have the peace of mind that the funds are staying local and continuing to make a positive difference. And we can keep it as a named fund, so keep the name of the charity, but refer to it as a fund that sits with the community foundation, or we can, in certain circumstances, blend it into a larger program, really depending on what the circumstances are and what suits best for this particular scenario. So on to the next slide. Why dormant funds matter in Northamptonshire. It's fair to say that whilst parts of our county are wealthy, there are other parts that face real deprivation, real challenge and real need. And we have areas where access to mental health support, for example, youth services or community hubs is severely lacking. So dormant charitable funds can play quite a major role in plugging those gaps. And this program gives us the chance to unlock that, what we refer to as legacy wealth, wealth that's sitting within those funds, and revitalize it, redirect it to meet today's, what we think are really urgent needs. Next slide, our role in the program. So what is our role? After the Charity Commission has identified a dormant or inactive trust, or a trust that needs that revitalisation, they can refer it to us, and we can then engage with the trustees. We can support them with everything from the legal guidance to helping them reimagine, in some circumstances, how their fund can still fulfil its purpose in a modern context. We obviously, as I said before, we have that sort of local insight. We know the charities, we know the issues, and we know how to get the money working quickly and effectively on the ground through those other charitable organisations and causes. I wanted to give you in the next slide an example of a revitalised trust we've taken on. And it's a legacy fund that's just created from the closure of an organisation called ACES, or the African Caribbean Elder Society, which is in Northampton. And Hazel, this will be over 2 separate slides. I hope you'll be able to, I'm sure you'll be able to keep up with me in terms of where I'm going with this. So just to give you a bit of background, our CEO met with representatives of the charity to explore how we could help carry forward the legacy of ACES and its founder using the organisation's remaining funds. The trustees were keen to ensure the money would continue to support the community in a meaningful and sustainable way without the burden of ongoing charity management. And following these in-depth conversations between our CEO and the organisation, we put forward a proposal to establish a permanent named fund within the foundation. Once approved by the trustees, we supported them through the formal closure process, including final accounts, settling outstanding fees, and arranging the one-off transfer of the remaining funds, a significant amount of money that could do some real good within the community. The ACES Legacy Fund was then set up, and it now provides grants to local charities and community groups supporting older people from the global majority background in Northamptonshire. And it also became our first fund specifically focused on this community, which is a really good news story. And the fund honours the legacy of the ACES founder, who was a real passionate advocate for African Caribbean elders and vulnerable older residents in Northampton. And under her leadership, ACES ran projects such as digital skills training for old people and an intergenerational reminiscence project where young people captured and shared members' life stories. So it's really good fund. The funds were being directed to some really good causes in the community. And we think this is a strong example of how we can help revitalise trusts or manage the legacy of closing organisations to ensure their impact continues for years to come. In terms of our wider impact, moving on to the next slide, so far we've revitalised 7 trusts, which is worth an estimated 1.7 million or over that £1 million, which has all been reinvested into local communities. And that's money that's helping with mental health projects, food banks, youth training schemes, and much, much more. Our work is so broad and it covers so many other different areas. Which I'd be very happy to talk to you about if anybody was interested in learning more about our work in the future. So this is real money solving real problems in the community right on our doorstep. On to the next slide. Of course, we don't do this on our own. There's a role for everyone in this process, and indeed one of the key reasons for inviting you here this morning, is so you have an understanding of our work and that you can engage in our work in a meaningful way. So if you're a professional advisor who's listening today, you can refer dormant trusts or advise trustees about their options. If you're a business, you might want to partner with us as part of your social responsibility work. And if you're part of the voluntary sector, this opportunity could open up a new and sustainable funding for your organisation. So please refer and spread the word in terms of this area of our work and the wider work that we do, if that's relevant and appropriate. So onto the next slide. Everything that we do is strengthened by being part of UKCF, being part of the United Kingdom Community Foundation Network. That's our national membership body. It means we have access to shared legal frameworks, national guidance, case studies from across the country. It gives us the opportunity to partner with big organisations like big and important organisations like the Charity Commission. And this means that trustees aren't taking a leap of faith. They're joining a tested, proven and supportive system that makes their charitable funds work even harder. So going back to you and how you can help, there are three key things really that you could do for us. One is to refer any dormant trusts either to the Charity Commission or to us to give that additional layer of information. Even if it's just a conversation at the early stages, it will be a useful conversation at some point. You can introduce us to trustees who could benefit from the support that we offer. And you can help us raise awareness in your own networks, within your organisations, with the colleagues that you work for, and in the communities that you sit within, so that together we can give these legacy funds a new life and ensure they keep doing good for many years to come. And that's really our intention, is to be good ancestors and support our communities for the long term. I just wanted to say before I finish off, just to thank you all for your time and for all the work you do in your own sectors to support your communities. If you'd like to speak further after the session, I'd be very happy to connect. But now I think it's on to the questions. I'm going to hand back to Hazel, and thank you very much, Hazel, for hosting and chairing this morning's webinar.
Thank you very much, Dean. I'm very sorry if anyone noticed the issues we were having with the slides there. It was double skipping a little bit on me, but I'm hoping that we got it all under control. And what we will do is share all of these slides and the information that we've discussed with everybody that's attended after the webinar. So if you did miss anything or you'd like something repeating, don't worry about it. There'll be a recording shared. Let me just have a double check. So we don't have any open questions at the moment, but I do have a question, so I will go first. Obviously, like you kind of said earlier, Tracy, some trustees are so dedicated to the charity that they've worked for such a long time, and they can be really attached to the cause and to kind of wanting to create a really meaningful impact through their charity. I don't know whether this is maybe more of a question for Dean, but I suppose everyone can weigh in. So if a trust winds down through the Revitalising Trust programme, would it be possible for former trustees then to stay involved in that grant making process?
Yeah, they could do that in a number of different ways, Hazel. And I think there's something nice about keeping those individuals close to the work of the foundation and obviously the legacy of the fund that they've created. It will help ensure that we stick to the original intention of that fund potentially. But also they've invested a lot of time and effort into building that charity, so why not be involved? And I think where they perhaps, and this will be open to conversation, but they could sit on a panel, for example, to determine how the funds are directed to future causes. There are other ways that that they could participate, but I think in the main, the idea of transferring the funds to the Community Foundation is to relieve them of some of the additional burden and responsibility that comes with managing a charity on a day-to-day basis. So it gives them that ability to sit back, take a bit of a breather from it all, but also enjoy seeing their work and the legacy of their work continuing into the future. So I think there is definitely scope for ongoing participation and support from those existing trustees.
Fantastic.
I'd reiterate that actually. I mean, I know, having worked in the commission for many years, a lot of trustees you know, are very passionate about their organisations, and unfortunately they become elderly or whatever, and they just can't manage the organisation anymore, but they can contribute to that winding down process or that revitalisation. And I think just communicating is the main thing, you know, to assist with that really. And some of the ideas there that Dean gave, you know, can be really beneficial, and we're happy as well to help and to make sure, you know, that particularly where you've got the founder of a charity, very often is the person who's particularly passionate. You know, we can work with them to make sure that those funds are revitalised properly, you know, for the good of the community, but also adhering to the purposes for what they were given.
Oh, fantastic. That's great news, I think, for a lot of people, because I imagine it's quite a nerve-wracking process to kind of get in touch with, whether it's your local community foundation or the charity commission in the first instance, and to have that reassurance is really helpful. Thank you. We haven't had any more questions, so it's down to me to wrap up. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you for your time. And obviously a very special thank you to our speakers, to Debbie, to Tracy, and to Dean. We really, really appreciate your time and your insight, and we hope that everyone else has enjoyed this opportunity to hear more, learn a bit more about the Revitalising Trust programme. If anyone has any follow-up questions, if you'd like to speak to any of us further, then please do get in touch. And we'll be sending an email out with the recording and the slides from this webinar. You can drop us a response to that. Everyone has confirmed before the webinar that they're happy to kind of answer any follow-up questions that you may have. So thank you again so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you all very soon. Take care and have a lovely rest of your Tuesday.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.